The chamber was impossibly large. Ambassador David Mercer stood on a floating platform no bigger than a living room, suspended above an endless void. Around him, rising in circular tiers that stretched toward a ceiling lost in darkness, sat 1,200 alien species. Some had scales that shimmered with bioluminescent light. Others were massive creatures of stone and metal, their bodies humming with ancient machinery. A few were nothing more than clouds of colored gas, contained within energy fields that pulsed with each word they spoke. Every single one of them was staring at the 5 humans below. Mercer felt his heart pounding against his ribs, but he kept his face perfectly calm. Behind him stood Captain Elena Voss, her military uniform pressed sharp despite 30 hours of hyperspace travel. To his left, Dr. Raymond Cole clutched a small device containing every piece of data humanity had gathered about galactic civilization. 2 security officers, Sergeant Marcus Webb and Private Tanya Rivers, completed their small delegation. 5 humans. Against the entire galaxy, the chamber fell silent as 3 platforms descended from above. The triumvirate had arrived. The first was Sovereign Kallus of the Veldrith, a serpentine being nearly 20 feet long. His body coiled around his throne like a living rope, and his eyes were vertical slits that reflected no light. When he spoke, his voice echoed through translation implants that every delegate carried. Species designation human. Origin world Earth. Sol system. You have been summoned to answer before the Galactic Council. Mercer straightened his shoulders. We understood this was a diplomatic meeting, not a trial. A ripple of whispers passed through the chamber. Species that had been council members for thousands of years knew the danger of interrupting a sovereign. The second member of the triumvirate, Arbiter Melix of the Crystalline Order, leaned forward. Her body was made of living glass, and light refracted through her in patterns that hurt to look at directly. You were informed of what was necessary to ensure your presence. Your species has been under observation for 70 of your years. A decision has been reached. A decision, Mercer repeated slowly, made without our knowledge, without representation. The third triumvirate member laughed. Grand Marshal Theron of the Hegemony was a massive 4-armed warrior, his gray skin covered in ritual scars. Representation is earned through service. Your species has existed in space for 15 years. You control 3 worlds. Your entire fleet consists of 47 vessels. He spread all 4 arms wide. The Hegemony commands 12 million ships. You do not earn a voice. You earn the privilege of survival. Mercer felt the weight of billions watching through the galactic broadcast network. His daughter was watching from Mars. His aging mother was watching from Earth. Everyone he had ever known was holding their breath at this moment. If we are not on trial, he said carefully, then what exactly are we here for? Sovereign Kallus uncoiled slightly, his scales shifting through colors that communicated contempt in his species' body language. Humanity presents certain variables that require correction. Your expansion rate exceeds predicted parameters. Your technological development follows no recognized pattern. Your species is unpredictable. We value creativity. The Council values order. Kallus's voice dropped lower. Unpredictability is dangerous. It must be controlled. Arbiter Melix raised a crystalline hand, and holographic images filled the chamber. Earth appeared first, beautiful and blue against the black of space. Then came images of human cities, human ships, human soldiers. The Council has determined the following terms, Melix announced. Humanity will accept Guided Development Protocol 7. Your expansion beyond current territories will halt immediately. Your military vessels will be decommissioned. Your scientific research will be supervised by Council observers. Your population growth will be regulated. New images appeared. Earth surrounded by alien stations. Human colony worlds circled by massive blockade fleets. Humanity in chains. In exchange, Melix continued, you will receive full council protection, trade access, cultural exchange, a seat in this chamber in approximately 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Mercer almost laughed at the absurdity. They were offering humanity the privilege of maybe, eventually, possibly being allowed to speak for themselves. If they behaved perfectly for longer than recorded human history. Captain Voss stepped forward until she stood beside him. Her voice was steady when she spoke. And if we decline? The chamber went absolutely still. Grand Marshal Theron rose from his throne, his shadow falling across the human delegation like a physical weight. No species declines. Mercer exchanged a glance with his team. Dr. Cole's face was pale but determined. Webb and Rivers stood ready, though their weapons would be useless against the power assembled in this room. We need time to consult with our government, Mercer said. You have 72 hours, Sovereign Callis replied. You will remain aboard this station until you deliver your response. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. The Council has existed for 12,000 years. We have guided countless species toward proper development. Those who resisted are no longer remembered. The audience with the triumvirate was over. Guard drones surrounded the human delegation and escorted them toward their assigned quarters deep within the station. As they walked through corridors of impossible architecture. Dr. Cole leaned close to Mercer's ear. Ambassador, there's something you need to see. I've been analyzing the historical archives they gave us access to. Something is very wrong. Wrong how? The species that founded the Council. The ones they call the Architects. The official history says they left voluntarily, that they ascended to some higher form of existence. Cole's voice trembled. That's a lie. I found fragments of older records buried in the system. The Council destroyed them. Every single one. 12,000 years ago, the Architects tried to give younger species more freedom. So the other founders eliminated them completely. Mercer kept walking, his face revealing nothing to the guards escorting them. But inside, his mind was racing. You're saying they've done this before? Hundreds of times. Any species that develops too fast, that refuses to conform, that shows too much independence. Cole's hands shook as he clutched his device. They don't want to guide us, Ambassador. They want to break us. And if we resist, they'll do to Earth what they did to the Architects. They reached their quarters, a sterile suite of rooms with no windows, and a single door that sealed behind them with a heavy magnetic lock. Mercer gathered his team close. They're listening. Assume everything we say is being monitored. Voss nodded. Standard protocol. What's our play? Before Mercer could answer, his secure communication device vibrated. A message from Earth, wrapped in layers of encryption that should have been impossible to penetrate. He read it twice. They're lying about our ships. We have more than 47. Don't accept anything. Reinforcements are coming. Buy us time. Mercer deleted the message and looked at his team. We have 72 hours to change the course of human history, he said quietly, and I have no intention of surrendering. Outside the door, alien guards stood watch, confident that they were containing 5 helpless primitives. They had no idea what was coming. The first night aboard the Council station felt endless. Mercer could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Earth surrounded by alien warships. He saw his daughter looking up at the Martian sky, wondering if her father would ever come home. At exactly 3 a.m. by Earth time, his communication device activated. But it was not a message from home. The frequency was strange, almost ancient. Buried in the data files Dr. Cole had uncovered, someone was calling. Mercer hesitated for a long moment. Then he answered. The voice that came through was unlike anything he had ever heard. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, like whispers carried on a cosmic wind. Ambassador Mercer of Earth, we have been watching. We have been waiting. And we believe you may be exactly what this galaxy needs. Who is this? We are the Veth Kai. The Council lists us as extinct. They are wrong. Mercer felt his blood run cold. According to the historical archives, the Veth Kai had been allies of the architects. They had been destroyed in the same purge 12,000 years ago. How is that possible? We learned to hide, the voice replied. In the dead spaces between stars, in regions the Council considers impossible to navigate. We have watched them rule through fear for millennia. We have watched species after species bow down or be destroyed. But you, Ambassador, you are different. Different how? Your species developed faster than light travel independently, without Council guidance, without stolen technology. Your minds work in ways their predictive models cannot anticipate. You are the first species in 3,000 years to genuinely surprise them. The voice paused, and fear is beginning to spread among the triumvirate. They do not understand you. That terrifies them. Mercer glanced at the sealed door. Why are you telling me this? Because you need allies. And we need proof that resistance is still possible. What you do in the next 72 hours will determine the fate of this galaxy. If you surrender, hope dies with you. If you fight, if you find a way to stand against them, you will inspire others who have been silent for far too long. The connection ended as suddenly as it had begun. Mercer sat in darkness, his mind churning. When morning came, he gathered his team and shared what he had learned, speaking in code phrases they had established before leaving Earth. The Council might be listening, but they would not understand. Meanwhile, on Earth, preparations were already underway. General Adaura Okonkwo stood in the command center of humanity's true military headquarters, buried 3 miles beneath the surface of Antarctica. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of every human vessel in existence. Not 47 ships, 212. For 15 years, humanity had been building in secret. Hidden in the asteroid belt, concealed by satellites that broadcast false sensor readings, Earth's real fleet had grown in silence. They were not powerful enough to defeat the Council in open combat. Everyone knew that. But they were powerful enough to make any attack on Earth extremely costly. General, one of her officers reported. The ambassador's signal came through. He needs time. Okonkwo nodded. Then we give him time. Move the fleet to defensive positions around Earth and the colonies. If the Council sends ships, I want them to see that we are not as helpless as they believe. What about the project? Okonkwo's eyes hardened. Activate it. Every Council system we have access to. Every relay station. Every communication hub. Plant the seeds and wait for the signal. The project was Dr. Cole's creation. 17 specialized viruses, each designed to target a different species technology. For years, humanity had studied every piece of Council equipment they could access. They had found weaknesses. They had created keys. And now those keys were about to be placed in every lock. Back on the Council station, Captain Voss had made a friend. His name was Harvox, a member of the pre-leaf species. He stood 8 feet tall, with a hard exoskeleton and compound eyes that reflected dozens of images at once. He was a minor delegate, responsible for agricultural trade agreements. But he was also deeply unhappy with Council rule. My people were warriors once, Harvox told Voss, as they walked through a public garden filled with plants from 100 worlds. 3,000 years ago, we were proud, independent, and the Council decided we were developing too quickly. They broke our military, destroyed our shipyards, taught us to be peaceful administrators. They domesticated you, yes, Harvox's voice carried ancient bitterness. Most of my kind have forgotten what we were, but some remember. Some dream of the day when we might fight again. Voss looked at him carefully. And if someone stood up to the council? If someone proved it was possible to resist? Harvox's compound eyes fixed on her with sudden intensity. Then perhaps others would find their courage as well. 48 hours remained. Sovereign Callus summoned Mercer to a private chamber deep within the station. It was a room of cold stone and shadows, with no witnesses, no guards, no one to see what passed between them. "You are not what you pretend to be," Callus said without preamble. His serpentine body coiled and uncoiled restlessly. "Your psychological profile indicates a man who would never surrender his people's freedom. You are planning something." Mercer kept his face blank. "I'm simply considering our options." "There are no options. This is what your species fails to understand. Every civilization that has stood in that chamber believed they were special, that they would find some clever solution others missed." Callus's scales shifted to a deep warning violet. "They were all wrong. You will be wrong. And when you force us to make an example of Earth, I will sleep perfectly well." Mercer stood his ground. "You asked about my profile. Did it mention that my wife died because council trade restrictions delayed medical supplies to our colony? Did it mention that I've spent 20 years watching aliens treat humanity like insects?" He stepped closer, close enough to smell the cold reptilian scent of the Sovereign's body. "You want to know my plan? Fine. I'm going to walk into that chamber and tell 1,200 species that humanity refuses to bargain. I'm going to tell them that Earth would rather burn than kneel. And I'm going to watch your face when you realize you have no idea what we're capable of." Callus smiled, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "I was hoping you would say that. It has been so long since we had a proper hunt." Mercer turned and walked away, his heart pounding, but his stride steady. 20-4 hours remained, and somewhere in the depths of space, ancient engines began to wake. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Word had spread across the galaxy that the human delegation would deliver their formal response. Species from distant star systems had tuned in to watch what everyone assumed would be either a humiliating surrender or a swift execution. 1,200 alien delegates filled the seas amphitheater. The air hummed with 1,000 different languages, all converted through translation implants into a constant buzz of anticipation. Holographic cameras broadcast the scene to 17 billion viewers across Council Space. And in the center of it all, on a platform no bigger than a small stage, Ambassador David Mercer stood alone, not quite alone. Behind him, Captain Elena Voss maintained perfect military posture. Dr. Raymond Cole held his data device with steady hands. Sergeant Webb and Private Rivers stood at parade rest, their eyes constantly scanning the crowd. The triumvirate descended on platforms of hardened light. Sovereign Callus coiled around his throne, his scales shifting through patterns of anticipation. Arbiter Melix's crystalline body pulsed with barely contained light. Grand Marshal Theron sat forward, his forearms crossed, a predator waiting for the chase to begin. "Ambassador Mercer," Callus announced, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "The Council awaits humanity's response to the Guided Development Protocol." Mercer took a single breath. He thought of his daughter watching from Mars. He thought of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered what waited among them. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "I have consulted with my government. I have reviewed your proposal in its entirety, and I am authorized to deliver Earth's official response." He paused. The silence stretched. "No," the chamber erupted. 1,200 species screamed in their native languages. Translation implants struggled to process the chaos. Delegates who had been council members for millennia stared in disbelief. This had never happened. In 12,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever refused. Order. Kalles's amplified voice cut through the noise like a blade. Slowly, reluctantly, the delegates quieted. Perhaps, the sovereign said, his voice dangerously soft, you did not understand the terms. This is not a negotiation. You do not have the option to refuse. Mercer nodded slowly. I understood perfectly. You told us to surrender our expansion, our military, our science, and our future. In exchange, you offered us the privilege of existing under your control. Correct. Then let me be absolutely clear. Mercer straightened to his full height. Earth does not recognize the Galactic Council's authority over human space. We do not accept restrictions on our development. We do not accept your protection. He let those words hang in the air, because we know exactly what your protection means. Dr. Cole stepped forward and activated his device. Holographic images filled the chamber, replacing the Council's carefully controlled displays with something far more disturbing. The architects, Cole announced. The species that founded this council 12,000 years ago. According to official history, they ascended to a higher form of existence. They left voluntarily, peacefully. The images showed a beautiful world, blue and green, orbited by graceful ships. This is the truth. The images changed. Fire rained from the sky. Cities burned. Ships exploded in the void. An entire civilization, screaming as it died. They didn't leave, Cole continued. They were murdered. When they tried to reform the council, when they tried to give younger species more freedom, the other founding members destroyed them completely. Every world, every ship, every single individual. The chamber had gone absolutely silent, and they weren't the only ones. More images appeared. More dead worlds. More extinct species. The Morith Collective. The binary minds of Epsilon Crucis. The singing forests of Veladron Prime. 347 species that accepted your guidance. 347 species that no longer exist. Grand Marshal Theron surged to his feet, fury radiating from his massive frame. Those records are classified. You accessed restricted. We accessed what the architects left behind, Mercer interrupted. They knew what you were. They knew what you would do. And they left warnings for anyone smart enough to find them. Arbiter Melix's crystalline form flickered with agitation. This changes nothing. You remain one species against thousands. Your technology is primitive. Your fleet is insignificant. You cannot fight us. Captain Voss stepped forward. You're right. We can't beat you in a straight fight. She smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. But humans don't fight straight. She gestured, and new holograms appeared. They showed council supply lines, communication hubs, the critical infrastructure that held the galactic civilization together. Your empire spans 3 million star systems, Voss said. Incredible logistics. Food production. Energy distribution. Communication networks. You're powerful, yes. But you're also incredibly fragile. Theron laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Are you threatening to attack our supply lines with your 47 ships? Voss's smile widened. Who said anything about ships? At that exact moment, across council space, 17 different critical relay stations received identical data packets. The packets contained a simple message and an attachment. The message read, with compliments from Earth. The attachment was not one virus, but 17. Each variant specifically designed to target a different species technology. Humanity's scientists had spent 15 years studying every piece of council equipment they could access. They had found the weaknesses. They had created the weapons. Alarms began sounding throughout the chamber as delegates received emergency communications from their home systems. What have you done? Callas demanded. Mercer remained perfectly calm. Nothing permanent. Yet, those viruses are currently sitting in your systems dormant. One command from Earth activates them. Your relay network collapses. Your defense platforms go dark. Your supply chains freeze. You would cripple galactic civilization. Yes, Mercer's voice was ice. We would. The question is whether you'll force us to. For a long moment, no one moved. The most powerful governing body in the galaxy stared at 5 humans and tried to understand how this had happened. Sovereign Callas's scales shifted through colors that no one in the chamber had ever seen before. Fear, the sovereign of the Veldrith, was afraid. You are bluffing, he said. But his voice lacked conviction. Try us. Mercer clasped his hands behind his back. Send your fleet to Earth. Destroy our worlds. Kill every human in existence. And watch your entire civilization crumble as 17 species lose access to the technology that makes interstellar life possible. This is madness. You would destroy yourselves just to hurt us? Mercer leaned forward slightly. Sovereign Callas, humanity has been destroying ourselves since we first picked up rocks to throw at each other. We're very good at it. The only question is whether we take you with us. The chamber remained frozen. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council did not know what to do. And in the shadows of the amphitheater, delegates from species that had long resented council rule watched the impossible happening before their eyes. A single species was standing against the galaxy, and the galaxy was blinking first. The triumvirate retreated to emergency session within minutes of humanity's refusal. Across council space, panic spread like wildfire as news of the human virus threat reached every corner of the galaxy. Species that had been loyal council members for millennia suddenly questioned whether their technology was safe. Trade routes ground to a halt as merchants refused to risk their ships. Military commanders demanded answers that their governments could not provide. In the council's private chambers, the 3 most powerful beings in the galaxy screamed at each other. We must destroy them immediately. Grand Marshal Theron slammed 2 of his 4 fists against the table. Mobilize the full hegemony fleet. Glass their worlds. End this before others get ideas. And trigger their viruses? Arbiter Melix's crystalline form flickered with barely contained fury. 17 species could lose their entire technological infrastructure. The economic collapse alone would take centuries to repair. Sovereign Callas coiled and uncoiled restlessly. They have called our bluff. For 12,000 years, no species has dared to threaten mutual destruction. They know we cannot risk it. Then what do you propose? Theron demanded. Let them walk away? Other species are watching. If humanity escapes consequences, every subjugated world in the galaxy will see opportunity. Callas's scales shifted to a cold, calculating blue. We show strength. We assemble a fleet so massive that humanity sees the futility of resistance. We give them one final chance to surrender. And if they refuse, we find their virus control systems and destroy them before triggering a response. It was a gamble. They all knew it. But it was the only option that preserved council authority without risking catastrophic collapse. Within hours, the largest armada in galactic history began to assemble. Meanwhile, on the council station, the human delegation was placed under arrest. Guards surrounded their quarters. Armed drones hovered at every exit. The message was clear. Humanity's representatives were now prisoners. But Captain Elena Voss had prepared for this moment. Before being confined, she had managed to transmit a coded signal using a frequency that council sensors could not detect. The signal reached the Vethkai hiding in the dead spaces between stars. It reached Harvox and the network of discontented delegates he had secretly assembled. It reached a dozen species that had been waiting for a sign. The message was simple. It begins. In their locked quarters, Mercer paced while Dr. Cole worked frantically at his device. They're assembling a fleet, Cole reported. Based on the communication traffic I'm intercepting, it's massive. Thousands of ships from every major council species. They're going to attack Earth. Yes, and they're searching for our virus control infrastructure. If they find it, if they disable our dead man switch, they'll have no reason to hold back. Voss checked the sealed door for the 100th time. We knew this might happen. The question is whether our allies will move in time. What allies? Sergeant Webb asked. We're 5 people locked in a room while the entire galaxy prepares to destroy our home. Mercer stopped pacing. We're not alone, Sergeant. The Vethkai have been hiding for 12,000 years, preserving architect technology that the Council thought destroyed. They've been waiting for this moment. Waiting for proof that resistance is possible. And you trust them? I trust that they hate the Council even more than we do. 3 days later, the Council Armada arrived in the Sol System. General Okonkwo watched them come from the bridge of the EDS Defiance, humanity's flagship. The holographic display showed a wall of alien ships stretching across millions of miles of space. Vessels from species she had only seen in intelligence reports. Weapons platforms capable of destroying planets. Troop transports carrying armies that could conquer continents. And facing them, 212 human ships. A fraction of the enemy's numbers. General, her communications officer reported. Grand Marshal Theron is broadcasting a system-wide message. Okonkwo straightened her uniform. Put it through. Theron's massive 4-armed figure appeared on every screen in the system. His voice boomed with absolute confidence. Humans of Sol, you have witnessed our response to your defiance. This fleet represents the combined might of the Galactic Council. Your ambassador's threats were bold, but they end now. Surrender your virus controls. Accept the guided development protocol. And you may yet survive. The message ended. Okonkwo opened a channel to all human ships. This is General Okonkwo. Maintain positions. Do not engage unless engaged. General, her tactical officer said quietly, we can't win this fight. We're not trying to win it. Okonkwo's eyes never left the wall of alien ships. We're buying time. Then the sensors screamed. New contacts appeared at the edge of the system. Not from the direction of Council space. From somewhere else entirely. From the deep black regions that no species had navigated in millennia, ships emerged from hyperspace. Ancient ships. Their designs were older than the Council itself. Smooth curves and flowing lines that spoke of technology so advanced it looked like magic. The Vethkai had arrived. And they were not alone. Beside them came vessels from a dozen other species. Ships that bore the marks of hidden civilizations, of peoples who had escaped council purges and survived in the forgotten corners of the young. Galaxy. Grand Marshal Theron's voice cut through the chaos. Identify yourselves? A new voice answered, carried on frequencies that should have been impossible. Grand Marshal Theron. We are what remains of the Architect Alliance. We are the species you thought you had destroyed. The species you believed extinct. Theron's image flickered with confusion and something that might have been fear. The architects are dead. We made certain of it. You made us hide. You made us patient. And now humanity has proven what we always believed. That your council is not invincible. That resistance is not futile. The Vethkai fleet began broadcasting a signal. It was old, older than human civilization, older than the Council itself. And it resonated with something deep within every ship in Theron's armada, because all Council technology was built on architect foundations. Every system, every weapon, every engine could trace its origins to the founders. and the founders had left a key. Across the council fleet, weapons locked up. Engines sputtered. Communication systems flooded with a single repeating message in every language. The council was meant to protect, not to rule. The founders have returned. Theron's fleet drifted helpless, dead in space out on the bridge of the Defiance. General Okonkwo allowed herself a small smile. "General," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the council station. The Triumvirate is requesting ... negotiations." Okonkwo looked at the frozen armada before her, at the ancient ships that had emerged from myth to stand beside humanity, at the future that suddenly seemed possible. "Tell them," she said, "that Ambassador Mercer will receive their request when he's ready." In the darkness of their prison quarters, the human delegation heard the doors unlock. A single figure stood in the corridor. Arbiter Melix, her crystalline form dim with something that might have been shame. "Ambassador Mercer," she said quietly, "the Triumvirate requests your presence. It appears negotiations may be necessary after all." Mercer looked at his team. Then he stepped forward into the light. The galaxy was about to change forever. The council chamber looked different now. The towering thrones of the Triumvirate stood empty. Sovereign Kallus had been removed from power by his own species after the humiliation at Sol. Grand Marshal Theron faced charges of incompetence from the Hegemony Military Command. Only Arbiter Melix remained, and she no longer sat in judgment from above. She stood on the central platform beside Ambassador David Mercer, meeting him as an equal. Around them, 1,200 alien delegates watched in stunned silence. The broadcast still reached every corner of the galaxy, but the tone had shifted completely. This was no longer a trial. This was something unprecedented. This was negotiation. "The Galactic Council recognizes the need for discussion," Melix announced, her crystalline voice carrying through the vast space. "Ambassador Mercer, please present humanity's terms." Mercer stepped forward. He felt the weight of billions of hopes pressing down on him, but his voice remained steady. "Earth's demands are straightforward. First, full sovereignty over human space. No restrictions on expansion, development, or military capability. Second, recognition of humanity as a founding member of a reformed council. Third, abolition of the guided development protocol for all species. Fourth, immediate release of all information from restricted archives, allowing every civilization to know the true history of this galaxy. Fifth, formal acknowledgement of the architect's legacy and the return of the Vethkai to galactic society. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. These demands would reshape everything the Council had built over 12,000 years. Melix's form flickered with complex emotions. "You ask us to surrender our authority, to expose our history, to admit that we were wrong. Yes, many here will never accept this." Mercer nodded slowly. "Then they can watch their civilization crumble. Our virus network remains active. The Vethkai fleet remains in the Sol system. The species that joined us remain committed to change." He paused. "Or you can recognize that the old way was never sustainable. That ruling through fear only works until someone refuses to be afraid." Silence stretched through the chamber. Then, from the delegate galleries, a voice spoke up. Harvox of the Prelith rose to his full 8-foot height, his compound eyes reflecting the light of 100 worlds. "My species was conquered 3,000 years ago," he announced. "We were warriors. The Council broke us, made us forget who we were." He looked directly at Melix. "I support humanity's terms, and I am not alone." One by one, delegates from dozens of species stood. Peoples who had suffered under Council restrictions. Civilizations that had watched siblings and allies disappear into extinction. Voices that had been silent for centuries finally found their courage. Melix watched them rise. When she spoke again, her voice carried something it had never held before: acceptance. The Reformed Council will meet in 30 days to formalize new governance structures. Ambassador Mercer, humanity will have a seat at that table. Mercer inclined his head. We'll be there. But he was not finished. There's one more thing, he said. We don't want the Council destroyed. Despite everything, you maintained peace across 3 million systems for 12,000 years. That matters. What we want is reform. Protection, not control. Guidance, not domination. The architects had the right idea. You just lost your way. Melix's crystalline form pulsed with light. You would forgive us? After what we planned to do to your world? Mercer considered the question carefully. Forgive? No, maybe never. But humanity didn't survive by holding grudges forever. We survived by building bridges, even with enemies. He allowed himself a small smile. Especially with enemies. The negotiations lasted for weeks. Representatives from Earth, the Vethkai, and dozens of newly empowered species met in session after session, hammering out the details of a new galactic order. There were arguments, setbacks, moments when it seemed the entire process would collapse. But in the end, the Treaty of Soul was signed. 6 months later, the galaxy was changing. Ambassador David Mercer stood on the observation deck of the Mars Colony Station, watching the sunset paint the Martian sky in shades of orange and pink. Ships from a dozen species passed overhead. Trade vessels, explorer craft, the first genuine visitors to human space, coming not as conquerors or observers, but as friends. Footsteps approached behind him. He turned to find his daughter, now 14 years old, walking toward him with a data pad in her hands. The news feeds are going crazy, she said. They're calling you the man who changed the galaxy. Mercer laughed softly. I just said no at the right time. Other people did the hard work. His daughter joined him at the window. Are you going back? To the council? No. He shook his head. My job is done. Let younger voices speak for humanity now. He put an arm around her shoulders. I'm going to stay right here and watch you grow up. Maybe teach you to fish in those new terraformed lakes. She rolled her eyes but leaned into his embrace. On Earth, General Okonkwo received a new title. Admiral of humanity's Galactic Defense Fleet. Her task was enormous. Integrating human military doctrine with architect technology. Training officers from both human and alien species. Building a force that could protect not just Earth, but all the worlds that had joined humanity's cause. She stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned ED's Unity, watching young cadets from 5 different species running combat simulations together. A Prelith officer worked alongside a human lieutenant. A Vethkai tactical advisor corrected a young hegemony defector's targeting solution. Admiral, her aide reported, we've received confirmation. The joint fleet exercise with the Reformed Council Navy begins tomorrow. Okonkwo nodded. Make sure our people are ready. We're not here to show off. We're here to prove that different species can work together as equals. Dr. Raymond Cole became the first human director of the Galactic Archive. His mission was simple but vast. Preserve the true history of all species. Ensure that the Council's secrets never again went forgotten. Build a repository of knowledge that would outlast any empire. He stood in the restored architect library beneath the Council station, surrounded by data crystals containing the memories of 12,000 civilizations. Some of those civilizations no longer existed. Their voices had been silenced forever. But their stories would be told. Director Cole, one of his assistants, called. We've found something, hidden in the deepest archives. Records from the original architect homeworld. Cole walked over, his heart racing. What kind of records? Coordinates. The architects left a message. They built something at the galactic core, something they wanted future generations to find. Cole stared at the ancient data. A door. The architects had left a door. 1 year after the Treaty of Sol, a joint expedition launched toward the galactic core. Ships from humanity, the Vithi, the Prelith, and 100 other species traveled together into the unknown. What they found changed everything. Architect Homeworld was not destroyed. It was hidden, protected by technology so advanced that the entire planet had been shifted slightly out of phase with normal space. For 12,000 years, it had waited, watching, hoping and within its ancient halls. They found a message. To those who proved worthy by standing together. Welcome. You have shown that the galaxy can be more than fear and control. You have shown that different species can unite against tyranny. The next chapter begins now. Beyond this door lies the rest of the universe. Galaxies beyond counting. Civilizations beyond imagining. We left to explore them. Now it is your turn. Go forward, together. The expedition team stood before a massive gate. It hummed with power, its surface rippling with patterns that seemed to extend into dimensions the eye could not follow. On the command deck of the expedition flagship, representatives from every species present gathered to watch. A young human diplomat, barely out of university, had been chosen to give the command. She looked at the assembled faces, alien and human, ancient enemies becoming new friends. A galaxy learning to trust again. She thought of Ambassador Mercer, retired now, watching the stars with his daughter. She thought of Admiral Okonkwo, building bridges between fleets that had once been enemies. She thought of Dr. Cole, preserving the memories of the fallen so they would never be forgotten. She thought of Earth, that small blue world that had refused to kneel. Open the gate, she commanded. The structure activated with a sound like singing. Light poured from its surface, revealing a tunnel that stretched toward infinity. Stars gleamed in the distance. Galaxies spiraled in the darkness. A universe of possibility waited on the other side. Humanity had refused to bargain, and in doing so, they had opened a door to something even greater than survival. They had opened a door to the stars. The end.